Scary stories that we heard from time to time. Every country has its own urban legends. Stories that been told by people from all over the world. Some believed to be true and others to teach us a valuable lesson. On this video we will be going through the top 10 scariest urban legends. Number 10. Hello Kitty. The real story of Hello Kitty is a scary urban legend about the origin of the popular Japanese cartoon character. They say that Hello Kitty is demonic and was originally a product of devil worship and a satanic pact. According to the legend, Hello Kitty was created back in the 1970s by a Chinese woman. Apparently, her 14-year-old daughter was diagnosed with cancer of the mouth. The doctors told the mother that her child was terminally ill and there was nothing they could do for her. The mother refused to give up hope and visited every church in the city to pray for her daughter. When that didn't work, she came to the end of her rope. The desperate mother became involved with satanic rituals and devil worship. They say that, in order to save her daughter's life, she made a pact with the devil himself. For curing her daughter's cancer, the devil demanded only one thing in return. She would have to create a cartoon character that would appeal to children all over the world. The devil wanted to use the popularity of this cartoon character to trick people into worshiping Satan. When her daughter recovered from her cancer, the mother kept her promise to the devil. She created Hello Kitty. As the story goes, Hello Kitty was designed with no mouth because the daughter had cancer of the mouth. Hello Kitty's pointed ears represent the devil's horns. The word kitty means demon in Chinese. Hello Kitty really means hello demon. They say that anyone who buys Hello Kitty merchandise is welcoming the devil into their hearts. Satanists all over the world use Hello Kitty as a secret symbol, and many of them actually tattoo the image on their skin. Devil worshippers refer to Hello Kitty as the daughter of the devil. Number 9. Pet Snake. The pet snake is a scary story about a woman who loves reptiles, so she buys a python at the pet shop and keeps it in her house. There was a woman who bought a pet snake. It was a 12-foot-long Burmese python. She lived alone in a small house with her young son and kept the snake in a tank in the living room. The pet snake had a habit of escaping from its tank. After a while, the woman began to feel guilty about keeping such a large reptile in such a small, confined space. She would often take the snake out of its tank and allow it to roam freely about the house. Her little son loved the pet snake and often brought it out in the garden to play with it. One morning, the woman noticed that the pet snake had stopped eating. 3 days passed and the snake still hadn't touched any of its food. The woman began to get worried that there was something wrong with the snake, so she picked up the phone and called the vet. "Is it normal for a snake to suddenly stop eating?" she asked. "It depends," said the vet. In the wild, snakes often have to survive for long periods without food. Sometimes, they starve themselves in preparation for a big meal. Pet snakes can also get bored with what you're feeding them. They like a change of food now and then. The woman took the vet's advice and bought a new type of food for her pet, but the snake still refused to eat anything. Not long afterwards, the woman woke up in the middle of the night to find her pet snake lying in bed beside her. It was sleeping, stretched out completely straight on the bed. Thinking this was a little strange, she picked it up and put it back in the tank. A few days later, her son was playing with a snake in the garden. The woman was washing dishes in the kitchen when she happened to glance out the window. Her son was lying down on the grass. The snake was lying next to him, stretched out and stiff as a board. The woman became convinced that the snake was dying. She immediately grabbed the phone to call the vet again. "My pet snake still isn't eating," she said. "I don't think there is anything to worry about," replied the vet. "Just keep an eye on it, and if it still isn't eating by the end of the month, bring it into my office." "There's something else," said the woman. The other night, I found it lying in bed beside me. It was stretched out straight and totally rigid. "Oh no," said the vet, with alarm. "You'll have to get rid of the snake as soon as possible. It will have to be put down." "Why? What's wrong with it?" asked the woman. "That's what snakes do when they're measuring you," he said. "Measuring me?" she asked. "It was sizing you up in order to eat you," he replied. The horrified woman turned and looked out the window just in time to see her little son's feet disappearing down the snake's throat. Number 8. Black-eyed children. Black-eyed children or black-eyed kids is an urban legend about strange kids with eyes that are completely black who accost people late at night and demand help. Some people believe they are evil creatures in disguise and others believe they are aliens. The urban legend began in 1996 when a man named Brian Bethel from Abilene, Texas claimed he had an encounter with two very strange children. One night, he was getting into his car, which was parked outside a movie theater, when two young boys approached and knocked on his window. The man rolled down his window, but he got the strangest feeling that something wasn't quite right. "Hey, mister, we have a problem," said the older boy in a calm voice. "You see, my friend and I want to see the films, but we forgot our money. We need to go to our house to get it. Want to help us out?" There was something about the two pale boys that scared the man and he hesitated. "Come on, mister. Let us in. We can't get in your car until you do, you know," the boy said soothingly. "Just let us in, and we'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house." For the first time, the man noticed their eyes. They were as black as coal. There was no pupil and no iris. Just two completely black eyes. As if sensing the man's unease, the boy said, "Come on, mister. We won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun." The man was frightened and threw the car into reverse. The boy shouted, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in." The man drove off, but when he looked back, he saw that the boys were gone and the sidewalk outside the movie theater was deserted. Number 7. Under the Bed. Under the Bed is a scary urban legend about a family who go on holiday and check into a cheap hotel, only to find a scary surprise. A family went on vacation together and checked into a suite at a cheap old hotel. They booked 2 double rooms, one for the husband and wife and one for their children, a boy and a girl. When they got to their room, they both detected a bad odor. The husband called down to the front desk and asked to speak to the manager. He explained that the room smelled very bad and they would like another suite. The manager apologized and told the man that they were all booked because of a convention, but he said he was going to send a maid up to their room to clean and to try and get rid of the odor. After lunch, the family went back to their rooms. When the kids walked into their room, they could both still smell the same odor. Again, their father called the front desk and told the manager that the room still smelled really bad. The manager told the man that there was nothing he could do. So the kids had to spend the night in the room. The girl and boy held their noses, trying not to breathe in the stink. Eventually, they got to sleep and in the morning, their parents were knocking at the door to wake them up. When they opened the door, their father smelled the stink and decided he had to get to the bottom of what was causing this horrible smell. So he started searching the entire room for the source of the bad odor. He sniffed the towels, took down the curtains, and checked the carpet. The kids helped out too, checking the bedclothes and the mattress. As he pulled the top mattress off the bed, the young boy saw there was a big hole in the box spring base underneath. He looked down into the base of the bed and came face to face with a horrible sight. There, lying curled up inside the base, was the dead body of a woman. The boy realized that he had slept all night just a few inches away from a rotting corpse. Number 6. Kidney thieves. Kidney Thieves is an urban legend about a college student who meets an attractive girl at a party. This story is also known as the kidney heist, the organ thieves, and the stolen kidneys. There was a young man who was going to college. He went to Las Vegas with his buddies for spring break. They were all having a good time, going from bar to bar and gulping down drink after drink. They stopped at one bar where a band was playing music and, pretty soon, the friends were all laughing, singing and shouting loudly. The young man had just finished another drink when a beautiful young woman came up to him and started chatting. He was surprised and flattered at the same time. The woman seemed to be really attracted to him, so when she invited him to another party, he readily agreed. Leaving his friends in the bar, the young man followed her to an apartment on the outskirts of the city. When they went inside, there was already a party in full swing. They continued to drink and even danced a little. Then the girl began rummaging around in her handbag and took out a small pouch. Inside, there were 2 pills. She took one of the pills out and popped it in her mouth. Then, with a smile, she offered the other one to him. Although the young man would usually never do drugs, he decided to try it out, just this once. He thanked her, took the pill and swallowed it. That was the last thing he remembered. The next morning, he woke up in an unfamiliar hotel room. Looking around, he realized that he was lying, completely naked, submerged up to his neck in a bathtub filled with ice. Groggy and disoriented, he frantically tried to remember how he had ended up there. He was confused, scared, and in a lot of pain. That's when he spotted a crumpled note in his hand. It read, "If you don't want to die, call 911." There was a cell phone sitting on a small table beside the bathtub. He picked it up and dialed the number, his fingers numb and clumsy from the ice. When the emergency services operator answered, the young man explained that he didn't know where he was or how he got there, but he was in a lot of pain. When he mentioned the bathtub filled with ice and the note, the operator seemed oddly familiar with his situation. She said, "Sir, can you do the following for me? Slowly and carefully get out of the bath and examine yourself in the mirror." The man grabbed a towel rack and pulled himself up out of the ice. Looking over at the mirror, he saw that there were 2 9-inch slits in his lower back. When he described the injuries, the operator said, "I want you to get back into the bath, sir. The paramedics are on their way. Do not move until they arrive." "What happened to me?" asked the young man nervously. "I don't want you to panic," said the operator. "But last night you were drugged. Someone removed both of your kidneys. There's a ring of organ thieves operating in this city. They harvest kidneys and sell them on the black market. They say that the young man is currently in the hospital on a life support machine, awaiting a kidney donor." Number 5. Well to Hell. The Well to Hell is an urban myth about a team of scientists in Siberia who drilled a hole so deep that it broke through to hell. The story first appeared as an article in a Finnish newspaper. According to the legend, some years ago, a Russian scientific team were working on a geological drilling project in Siberia. They had managed to drill a hole over 14.5 kilometers depth deep in the crust of the earth, when the drill bit suddenly began to rotate wildly. The geologists felt a blast of searing heat gush out of the hole and thought they heard faint sounds emanating from the well. They raised the drill and lowered temperature gauges to measure the heat at the bottom of the hole. They got a huge surprise. The temperature, they discovered, was far higher than they had expected. By their calculations, the temperature at the bottom would have to be about 1,100 degrees Celsius over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They were shocked. It just didn't seem possible. Some of the scientists were too afraid to continue with the project. The most shocking thing was what they found next. They lowered a special microphone into the hole that was designed to withstand the heat. What they heard turned the remaining scientists into nervous wrecks. It was a weak but high-pitched sound. At first, they thought it was coming from their own equipment, but after some adjustments they realized it was actually coming from the Earth's interior. They could hardly believe their own ears. The scientists heard human voices, screaming in pain. It sounded like thousands, perhaps millions, of suffering souls crying and shrieking in unending torture. The horrified scientists had stumbled across a gateway to hell. After this ghastly discovery, about half of the remaining scientists quit their jobs and left. They were just too terrified to go on, fearing that they had accidentally let loose the evil powers of hell upon the Earth's surface. They hoped and prayed that whatever was down there would stay down there. Number 4. Vanishing Hitchhiker. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is a scary urban legend about a young girl who is on her way to a dance one night. A boy who is driving down a lonely country road sees her and stops to give her a ride in his car. This story is also known as Lavender, the Hitchhiking Ghost, and the Girl in the Road. A boy and his friend were on their way to a dance, driving down a lonely country road. They saw a young girl standing at the side of the road, with her thumb out. The boys stopped to ask her if she'd like a ride. She asked them if they'd take her home, but they told her they were on their way to a dance. They asked the girl if she'd like to come too, and she accepted their invitation. So they all got in the car and she sat in the back seat. It was a very cold night and she borrowed one of their overcoats. They danced all night, and when it got late, she asked them to take her home. So they drove to her house and stopped and let her out. Suddenly one of the boys remembered he had forgotten to ask her for his overcoat. His friend said, "Wait until tomorrow. We'll come back." The next morning the boys returned to look for the girl. They found her mother, a very old woman, at home. She said that the girl was her daughter, but she'd been dead for 12 years. She had been killed in a car accident at the same corner. The old woman pointed to a cemetery down the road. The boys didn't believe her and they went into the cemetery and looked around. Then they saw the overcoat draped over a headstone. Engraved in the tombstone was the girl's name, and the date of her death was exactly 12 years ago to the day. Number 3. Dancing with the Devil. Dancing with the Devil is an urban legend about a girl who goes to her school dance and meets a strange man in black. It is also known as the devil at the dance. There was a young girl who lived in Texas. She was excited because it was the night of the high school dance. She had bought a brand new dress for the occasion and she was sure she was going to look beautiful in it. She wanted the dance to be the best evening of her young life. Then, her mother came in the house, looking pale and determined. "You are not going to that dance," her mother said. "But why?" the girl asked her mother. "I've just been talking to the preacher. He says the dance is going to be for the devil. You are absolutely forbidden to go," her mother said. The girl nodded as if she accepted her mother's words, but she was determined to go to the dance. As soon as her mother was busy, she put on her brand new dress, sneaked out of the house and hurried to her high school. As soon as she walked into the ballroom, all of the young men turned to look at her. She was startled by all the attention. Normally, no one noticed her. Her mother sometimes accused her of being too awkward to get a boyfriend. But she was not awkward that night. The boys in her class were fighting with each other to dance with her. Later, she broke away from the crowd and went to the table to get some punch to drink. She heard a sudden hush. The music stopped. When she turned around, she saw a handsome young man with jet black hair standing next to her. He looked striking, with jet black hair slicked back from his forehead and an expensive suit. "You will dance with me," he said. The girl managed to stammer a yes, completely stunned by this gorgeous man. He led her out on the dance floor. The music sprang up at once. She found herself dancing better than she had ever danced before. They were the center of attention. Then the man spun her around and around. She gasped for breath, trying to step out of the spin. But he spun her faster and faster. Her feet felt hot. The floor seemed to melt under her. When she looked down, she noticed that the young man wasn't wearing any shoes, and instead of feet, he had black hooves. He spun her even faster. She was spinning so fast that a cloud of dust flew up around them both so that they were hidden from the crowd. When the dust settled, the girl was gone. The man in black bowed once to the crowd and disappeared. The devil had come to his party and he had spun the girl all the way to hell. Number 2. Buried Alive. Buried Alive is a creepy story about an old couple who lived together in a little house on the edge of town. They had been married for so long that they knew everything about each other. They knew each other so well that they even finished each other's sentences. One day, the old woman fell ill and her husband spent every day by her bedside, trying to nurse her back to health. Unfortunately, the old woman passed away and her husband was devastated by the loss. She was his one true love. Soon afterwards, the doctor arrived and pronounced her dead. Because it was the middle of the summer, they had a small funeral service and buried her the next day. The old man was so grief-stricken that, as his wife's coffin was being lowered into the grave, he tried to jump in after her. The people at the funeral had to hold him back until the grave was filled in. Lonely and miserable, the old man returned to his empty house. That night, he was awakened by a strange scratching sound. It grew louder and louder, but he couldn't figure out where it was coming from. When he turned over in bed, he was met with a terrifying sight. He saw a figure of a woman standing outside his bedroom window. With horror, he realized it was his wife. Her eyes were sunken and hollow. Her mouth was open wide in a silent scream and her fingers were clawing at the window pane. When he ran to the window and opened it, the figure vanished into thin air. He phoned the doctor immediately and begged to have his wife's body exhumed from the grave. The doctor refused to allow the coffin to be dug up, telling the old man that he was just suffering from stress after his wife's death. But the old man continued to see the same ghostly apparition outside his window every night. Finally, the old man couldn't stand it anymore. He got out of bed, got dressed, grabbed a shovel and headed for the graveyard. He came to his wife's grave and began digging and digging. When he eventually unearthed his wife's coffin and pried open the lid, he recoiled in horror. His wife's mouth was wide open, frozen in a silent scream. There were scratch marks all over the inside of the coffin lid and her fingers were worn down to the bone. Number 1. Talking Angela. Talking Angela is a scary urban legend about a mobile phone app that allows creepy hackers to interact with kids and take pictures of them. Talking Angela started as a mobile phone application used by a lot of children. Angela is a white cat with blue eyes who has a conversation with you and can answer any questions you ask. Recently, an email began to circulate warning people not to use Talking Angela. It said the app had been taken over by a creepy guy who uses it to spy on children and possibly kidnap them. He has managed to hack into the app and uses it to gain access to personal information on people's phones. It is said that if you say you're over 18, nothing happens. But if you're younger, the cat starts asking weird things, like where do you live, what are your parents' names, what is your phone number, etc. They say the creepy man is able to take photos and record video of you through the phone's camera, and if you zoom in and look carefully at the cat's eyes, you can actually see him. Sometimes there is just an empty room, but sometimes you can see a creepy guy watching you. Even if you close down the app, it keeps running in the background so he can watch you and take pictures. In one of the more sinister cases, a young girl was talking to Angela and got the scare of her life. Angela asked her age and the girl decided to lie and say she was 30 years old. She was horrified when the cat responded, "That's a lie. You're about 11 or 12. The girl was shocked and stunned. Then, as if it could see the expression on the girl's face, it said, "I know you're about to delete me. Take care, sweetheart." In another case, a child was talking to the cat and happened to place his finger over one of Angela's eyes. The cat said, "Take your goddamn hand off my eye, I can't see." The boy closed down the app, but later he heard a clicking sound coming from the phone as if it was taking photos of him. Some Spanish-language websites claim that a young boy named Eli Morinos, who lived in a suburb of Dallas, Texas, disappeared shortly after his mother downloaded the Talking Angela app. One woman claimed that her daughter stayed home from school and was on her iPod playing with Talking Angela. The mother overheard the conversation and said the cat knew her daughter's name and asked strange questions like, "Hi, where is your brother?" The girl said, "He's right here next to me," and the cat said, "Oh cool." Then the cat asked, "So what do you do for fun?" The girl replied, "I don't know," and Talking Angela's voice suddenly changed to some sort of weird robotic voice. It asked the little girl, "When you date, what do you do on your dates?" The child was embarrassed. She got red in the face and said nothing. Then the cat said, "Stick out your tongue." "I'll stick mine out too." What are some things you can do with your tongue? I can find many things to do with my tongue. Let's interact with our tongues. At that point, the mother said she had heard enough and yelled at her daughter to shut off the app. She was so freaked out that she called the police department and they said they would have their Internet Investigations Unit look into it. They called her back an hour later and said, "Something is behind the cat." When a police officer came to interview the little girl, she told him that she had been using the app with her cousin, and Angela asked both girls their names and her brother's name was what school they went to. It also took a picture of them. When the girl used the app again a few days later, it remembered that she had a brother. Apparently the cat is also asking girls for their phone numbers and if they've had their first kiss yet. Welcome to my channel. Hope you enjoyed. New video every week. Please like, share, and subscribe and turn on the bell notification button to receive the latest videos. Thank you.